Extreme Championship Wrestling, or ECW, wasn't just another wrestling company. It was a revolution. In the 1990s, when wrestling was dominated by larger-than-life cartoon characters and family-friendly shows, ECW brought something raw, violent, and unapologetically real. It gave fans who were tired of the polished mainstream a place where chaos reigned, blood flowed, and passion mattered more than any production value. But one of the most overlooked parts of the story, the visual heartbeat of ECW itself, was the evolution of its World Heavyweight Championship. Each design told a piece of the company's story, from rebellion and survival to the eventual decline and legacy. So today, let's take a deep dive into the complete history of the ECW World Heavyweight title, every design, every era, and the story behind them. Before Extreme, there was Eastern. ECW began in 1992 as Eastern Championship Wrestling, a small promotion under the National Wrestling Alliance banner, the NWA. It was a relic of wrestling's territorial days, traditional, conservative, and ruled by the same old names. But Eastern Championship Wrestling had something different. It had Paul Heyman, a visionary who believed wrestling needed to evolve. And in 1993, he joined the company as a booker, bringing with him a wild, rebellious energy that clashed with the NWA's old-school philosophy. Then came August 27, 1994, the night that changed everything. A tournament was held to crown a new NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and Shane Douglas won. But instead of celebrating, Douglas did something unthinkable. He threw down the legendary NWA 10-pound of gold and declared, "They can all kiss my ass, this belt is now the ECW World Heavyweight Championship." And in that moment, Eastern Championship Wrestling was dead, and Extreme Championship Wrestling was born. ECW had declared war on the establishment, and the world title became the ultimate symbol of that rebellion. The first ECW world title wasn't a new design. It was the original Eastern Championship belt. It featured a classic layout, a proud eagle perched on top, grappling wrestlers in the center, and 4 beautifully painted side plates with touches of blue and red. Now, when the company broke away from the NWA, they simply painted over the Eastern banner in the middle, replacing it with ECW in red. It was simple, but a symbolic change, a small act of defiance that said, "We're doing this our way now." Now, over the time, the belt aged right alongside with the company. ECW's gritty, no-rules style left it battered and scratched. Fans could see the wear and tear on the gold, a perfect reflection of ECW's rough around the edges identity. And at one point, someone even added gems to the main plate, giving it a flashier, almost DIY look. Now, this belt was around during ECW's rise from a local Philadelphia promotion to a national cult phenomenon, held by names like The Sandman, Terry Funk, and Shane Douglas, wrestlers who embody the word extreme. But in 1996, ECW quietly introduced a new championship design, one that many fans didn't even know existed. This belt had a regal look, almost a mix of the classic big gold design and Hulk Hogan's 1986 WWF Championship. The company had just signed its first national TV deal with the Nashville Network and was earning respect from fans who once saw it as just a violent sideshow. ECW was becoming a legitimate third force in wrestling. Introduced by Raven during his reign in 1996, this design didn't last long, maybe a year or two, but it marked ECW's attempt to evolve its image from an underground cult to a serious contender. Even though the ECW lettering felt a little awkward in the center, the overall look showed that the company was thinking bigger. Then came the belt that would define ECW forever, the 1998 ECW World Heavyweight Championship. This was the perfect blend of chaos and art, a design that looked like ECW. The main plate featured a globe wrapped in barbed wire, the words "Heavyweight Wrestling" scrawled in dripping red blood, and a jagged gash tearing through the metal. It was raw, it was violent, and impossible to mistake for anything else. The side plates carried that same energy. Bloods, bats, and barbed wires everywhere. Every inch of the title screamed hardcore. This was the title held by legends like Taz, Tommy Dreamer, and Mike Awesome, the warriors who made ECW much-watched television in the late 1990s. And just like the company, the belt itself evolved constantly. ECW wasn't big on consistency. They customized, they repainted, and modified their belts to fit different storylines and characters. Now, there are many notable variants. I'm going to miss a few of them. But the original 1998 version had purple highlights, it had a red globe, and a striking yellow backing. It was yellow and unapologetic. Now, there were a couple other classic versions. The black and blue replaced the purple, keeping a clean but still gritty look. Arguably the most famous version, the Taz version, which added Taz lettering behind the barbed wire bats and blacked out the main plates. It was awesome. Fit Taz perfectly. Then WWE ended up purchasing ECW after they were bankrupt, and 5 years after that, they introduced the ECW as their third brand. And of course, they brought back that iconic design, which had red logos, it had darker tones, and there was even a blacked out design that tried to modernize ECW in a way, but I think they were just using replicas at the time that they were modifying a little bit. Now, during my research for this video, I did find a different design. Now, I don't know if this was actually used or not, but you can see a wrestler silhouette performing a frog splash. I would assume this was for Rob Van Dam, but I was not able to find any information on this was actually used or not. Now, this belt lasted through the final years of ECW, from 1998 until the eventual closure of the company in 2001. It would return briefly in WWE's ECW Revival from 2006 to 2008, but Extreme had changed at that point. Of course, there's no talking about the ECW World title without mentioning probably one of the most iconic unsanctioned title belts in wrestling history, Taz's FTW World Heavyweight title. In 1998, Taz was on a mission to face ECW champion Shane Douglas, but Douglas was injured and kept dodging him. So Taz did what ECW wrestlers did best. He said, screw it, I'll make it my own thing. The FTW, Fuck the World Championship, perfectly captured ECW's rebellious spirit. The first design was a modified winged eagle belt with a bright orange strap, a big Taz logo, a symbol of pure defiance. Now, later, Taz would replace it with a new design featuring a circular main plate, the massive FTW logo, orange side plates, and even hands flipping the bird. The FTW title blurred the line between storyline and reality, much like ECW itself. It wasn't about the corporate approval or official recognition, it was about pride and attitude. Decades later, the title would actually make its shocking return in AEW, where it was introduced by Brian Cage after John Moxley was injured, or I think he actually had COVID-19, so he couldn't defend his title. But after that, it bounced around from Ricky Starks to Hook, before it was eventually retired, but it proved that the FTW spirit never really died, and it could return at any point, really. But getting back on track to the final ECW championship, it was 2008, and ECW was a very different beast. WWE had revived the brand, but it was a sanitized version of what came before. There was no blood, there was no chaos, it was pretty much just another TV show. The final ECW title, known as the Phoenix Belt or the 3D Belt, reflected that change. It was massive, it was all silver, and featured a giant phoenix spreading its wings behind the ECW logo. It had a nameplate, making it look more like a modern WWE title than the known classic symbol of hardcore rebellion. The title design wasn't bad. It was clean, it was futuristic, and it was very professional. But that was the problem. It didn't feel like ECW. There was no blood, there was no barbed wire, no grit, no hardcore. Just a silver bird rising from the ashes that had already gone cold. By this time, ECW had lost its world title status, and the champion was treated as a mid-carder, even entering the Royal Rumble for a chance to challenge for a world title at WrestleMania. The Phoenix design became a symbol of what ECW had become, a brand in name only. Still, it's a fascinating piece of wrestling history and the last and final chapter of a company that changed the business forever. And that's the complete history of the ECW title. But for years, there was whisperings about an unreleased ECW title design, one that was rumored to be used before they went with the Phoenix design. Now, the only proof was a blurry photo of the side plate locked away in WWE's warehouse. That was until December 2024, when WWE finally revealed it on their Vault YouTube channel. The belt had a rough industrial look, almost like it was made from the same metal as the steel steps. There was barbed wires, and there was chains crisscross on the main plate, and the ECW actually popped in bright red. Now this one, unlike the Phoenix design, actually looked hardcore, but it was oddly shaped, it was too small to feel like a world title. Still, it actually had a little bit of the soul of ECW. It was gritty, it was different, and honestly, if WWE ever sold this as a replica, I definitely would buy it day one. but I think this would have been better as an ECW TV title or maybe tag titles for ECW if they wanted to introduce those to the brand. And that's it. That's every ECW title that's ever been used, and one that was even unused. Now, the ECW World Heavyweight title was more than just golden leather. It was a statement, a middle finger to the system. It represented the wrestlers who bled for their crafts, the fans who filled the ECW arena in Philadelphia, and the movement that inspired WWE's Attitude Era and AEW's Modern Freedom. From Shane Douglas to Taz, from the Sandman to Tommy Dreamer, every champion carried that same defiant energy. ECW may have been gone for over 2 decades, but its spirit still echoes through wrestling today, and every chant of "this is awesome," and every time a wrestler breaks the mold. I thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what title history you want to see next. Until next time, bye bye.